Sacha, Jansen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
When anybody found out that my family and I were incarcerated in the Philippines during the Second World War, they always asked, what in the world were you doing there in the first place? Well, my grandfather went out to the Philippines in 1918 and was involved with the sugar trade. Then it's really in its zenith. And his sons picked up work there on the plantation, eventually married and had children. And I was the first child. I was born in 1933. 1934, I contracted polio and spent about every 15, 16 months traveling to the United States, San Francisco, to have reconstructive surgery. Now, at the time, they told me that in 1942, in February, that I was to come back, get new braces, new surgery, new PT, new gait training, the whole works. Well, the Japanese took over December 8th, 1941, and all of the plans came to a halt. I was in Manila on the December 8th. I was having physical therapy. We lived about an hour and a half from Manila on the sugar plantation. And while I was having my physical therapy, the bombing started. Well, we picked up, took off, and went back home. We had lots of traffic going out of Manila because people were scared. When we got back, we had to make a decision. Do we come into Manila and be with the other Americans? Or do we stay out and continue on the plantation? We decided the plantation was safer. The Japanese had not come into Manila as of yet. But all of a sudden, one day, here comes the Japanese Zeros and Bettys, and they started strafing the plantation. So we got out of there in a hurry, went to Manila, and bivouacked at the Baby Hotel, which is right on Dewey Boulevard across the street from the U.S. High Commissioner's office. We thought that was the safest place. And that's where we were when the Japanese marched down Dewey Boulevard in front of the Baby Hotel. Now, where are you going to put all these people? There were 7,400 civilian Americans that were incarcerated in Manila, in the Philippines rather. The main #1 camp was Santo Tomas camp in Manila. And in that camp was just under 4,000 prisoners for the over 3 years we were there. After it got too crowded, they sent some men out to the province, out in the country, and they started building another overflow. And that was called Los Baños. And there were people up in the mountains who were incarcerated. And at the last month, they were brought down and put into Bilibid prison, which was in Manila, and it was a notorious prison. So when we all were put into Santo Tomas, the Japanese Imperial Army says to us, we are not going to feed you. And so how do we get food? They decided they didn't have to feed us because they were not co-signees of the Geneva Convention from 1929. So that's how they got by with that. Now, as long as there was food outside in Manila, then we could get food. One of the things that happened was, as soon as we got into camp, Americans started organizing things. This is a university that was not a boarding university. It was a day school. So there was nothing in there, no showers, no toilets, very few. So when Americans get together, they're big organizers. And so they start organizing, and they had a committee. And the committee was formed to be the go-between between this commandant's office and the prisoners. So they had different jobs, and one of the first jobs was to procure food. So how do they do that? They got permission to go on the outside. These are the gentlemen on the committee were city fathers, so they decided, let's go out, beg, borrow, and steal from other companies that are still in operation out there, give them IOUs so we could bring food in and stock up. Because at that point, we were only told we were going to be there for 3 days, and it lasted for over 3 years. So this is how we ate for the first year. We begged and borrowed and brought in food, rice, so forth. And they allowed a lot of vendors to come to the gate and to give us food. And then we had family and friends and household help who came and almost every day with hot food for us. So eventually, toward the end, the last year, I'll skip to the last year. Last year, the whole camp, whole prison system was taken over by the hardcore military Japanese. So all the gates were closed. We couldn't get any food that way. And people at this point, we were only having 2 meals a day, and each meal consisted of something called lugao, which is a watery rice gruel. And we had 2 meals a day with that. My mother was 73 pounds in February 1945. My sister suffered from what they call PTSD now, because she was 3 to 6 years old. And my brother was 3 months old to 3 years old. And I was 8 to 12. Now, the last year was terrible. We didn't have enough to eat. A lot of people were dropping dead every day. And we heard rumors that the Americans were coming back. But not only that, but in September, this is such an exciting time. This gave us a shot in the arm. The Army Air Corps started coming back with the liberators. And they came in waves of planes. And that was the best thing that we could have at that time to keep us going. So as soon as that happened, then we had hope, and we could go on. And we were looking for the next sound in the sky to come along with waves and waves of planes. Okay, now, 1945, January of 1945, we had heard that they were landing in Lingayen, MacArthur and his troops. And we felt buoyed, and we felt excitement. And on February 3rd, a low flying plane, American plane, came over the camp, treetop. Several planes. And one of the pilots dropped a goggles with a note attached, saying, "Christmas will be here soon." That night, about 3 minutes to 9, this wonderful 1st Cav Division with the flying column, 44th Tank Battalion, they crashed through the front gates.